Welcome back, it's me, Lou. For today's video, we are going to talk about custom action figures. So earlier this evening, I made a custom action figure and I wanted to share it with you. The inspiration behind it was Harley Quinn. So prior to the release of the Suicide Squad movie months ago, I reviewed this figure. DC Multiverse, Harley Quinn by McFarlane. This was part of the King Shark wave, and I thought this figure was great. It's a wonderful, awesome, kick-butt action figure. I think the likeness to actress Margot Robbie is really spot on. I love the dress. It's really detailed. But for me, as much as I like this action figure, it's one of those things where I kind of felt like they could have done more. Now, not in terms of doing more in terms of the action figure. I think the action figure itself is great. There's some issues, though, with the articulation because of the dress and the skirt. You know, it's kind of large and the material is kind of thick, so it prevents, you know, the range of motion from, like, being as extended as in as far reach as it could be. But for the most part, I think my issue kind of stemmed from the fact that this costume wasn't really the costume I wanted, you know, from the Suicide Squad movie. Early on in the movie, I think like in the first maybe like 15 minutes of the opening scene, Harley Quinn's wearing a really cool outfit, and that's the one outfit I kind of wish they made a figure for, not necessarily this dress. But don't get me wrong, great figure, it looks awesome. So when I saw this figure initially, I'm like, man, this is such a cool figure. But I in my head, I knew there was something I could do with it. You know, I wanted to make a custom using this figure as the base body. It just took me months to figure out what. And we're going to get to the custom in a little bit. Part of my inspiration for creating a custom Harley Quinn was this action figure here. I reviewed this recently in a previous video. This is the Bendy Figs Harley Quinn. It's based off much more of her comic book appearance. This is a really cool outfit. I dig this a lot. There's certain elements of this that kind of echo like the old Arkham City video game Harley Quinn, and then, you know, there's even the jacket and whatnot. And it's just a kind of a cool overall look. So I kind of dig this look a lot. And there's a part of me that kind of wanted to see if I could take on making this figure, but it was kind of out of the range of my skill set. You know, this might be something I might tackle, you know, down the road. But for me, this is kind of more so the kind of costume I wanted to see in Suicide Squad. And, you know, unfortunately, this is the figure we got. You know, she does wear a costume similar to this at the start of the movie. But, you know, we got this. All right, so we're going to talk about my custom now. So, I took this figure and I made a custom, and we're going to take that out right now. Let's set this aside. And here is my custom Harley Quinn. So, let's take a look at her up close. As you can see, this is using the McFarlane DC Multiverse Harley Quinn from the King Shark wave. And there's some subtle changes, some major ones, but overall I'm pretty happy with the end result. Like I say in previous videos, I like to make custom action figures that feel very stock. You know, I don't like to invest too much time into a custom. I don't like to add too much paint. I want it to feel like and look like something that you just bought right off the store shelves. You know, I want it to look very clean, very professional. And here she is. And we'll talk about the process I used to make her in a little bit. But I just wanted to present her up close and personal so you can see, you know, some of the changes up close. You know, I wanted a really nice, clean overall aesthetic, very streamlined. I kind of wanted to make it look fashionably hip. And let's talk about some of the changes. So right off the bat, one thing you'll notice, we'll start from the top, is her hair. So it's the same head. The only thing I did was I took an X-Acto knife and I cut off her pigtails, and then I just repositioned them, and I glued her pigtails to the top of her head, like so. I used Gorilla Super Glue, the gel kind, and it's a really strong glue. It almost like bonds like directly upon contact, so I like using that glue a lot. So I had to make sure that when I was gluing the hair on, I try to get it as even as possible. I do prefer Harley with her pigtails at the top of her head. I'm not too keen on having the double ponytails going down the shoulders. Alright, so going down, the next change was her dress. So on the original figure, as you can see here, her dress is held up by these shoulder straps. And I took an X-Acto knife and just cut off the shoulder straps, and it resulted in like a halter top, which I think is it's kind of a sexier look. It looks pretty cool. And one of the biggest changes you'll see also is that for her skirt here, I probably cut off 3/4 of her skirt. And the deal with the skirt is I couldn't cut it off too high. Like ideally in my head, if I could get away with it, I would have cut off the skirt altogether. But unfortunately, the pants I was using here, it only goes up so high. And if I cut off the skirt completely, she'd have this large gap in her abdomen. Because her torso underneath isn't fully developed, and it would just look kind of like unfinished. It'd look completely like bare, and there'd just be like a big gaping hole in her body. No pun intended. But yeah, so I kind of cut off the skirt right about there. And the one thing that I kind of felt was missing from this Harley Quinn costume is that, you know, traditionally Harley Quinn, her costume's always predominantly red and black. And it's kind of like a 50-50 color distribution. You know, on one side it's red, on the other side it's black, and it keeps on going back and forth. I kind of wanted to recreate that like subtly on my costume. So I colored half of her halter up here black. So it goes black over here. And then I colored part of her skirt black also. Initially I was kind of considering this like painting it all the way down, but I think it's more visually interesting with it kind of coming in at a diagonal like this. So in your head, you know, your brain tells you that it's still black underneath this part here. So it subconsciously it does balance out. And then to further add more black, I colored, she has this like wrap around her bicep. I colored that black also, so there's some asymmetry going on here because you have the red wrap here, and then I added black. Now this is where it gets interesting. So the legs, so the pelvic area and the legs are actually taken from another McFarlane figure, and that's the 7 Deadly Sins Bond action figure. And 7 Deadly Sins is an anime. If you've ever seen the Bond figure, he kind of looks like a very waifish, thin Dante from Devil May Cry. He has like the red long coat, the spiked white hair. He kind of has like an androgynous feel to him, and his butt and his legs, they're very feminine-like, and it worked perfectly for this figure. So to get the pieces to work together, all I had to do was submerge the lower half of this figure in hot water, and that softened up the plastic, and I had no problem at all just removing her pelvis and her legs just by popping it off. And the Bond pelvis and the upper half of Harley here, they were completely compatible. So I just plugged the peg into the socket and I married the pieces together. So it even has full articulation also. You can still swivel at the waist. And then the legs, you know, nothing going on there. They still They're still articulated like before. The colors don't match completely perfect. Like this is a different shade of red than the top, but from a distance, you're not going to really notice. I do like the gray studs on the side of her pant leg. I was initially considering maybe adding some gray trim to her halter or her skirt. I still might do that later, just to kind of add some uniformity to the top and the bottom. And then I kind of felt like I had to do something with the legs. Like, ideally, I would have loved it if I painted one leg black, so it kind of has that like traditional Harley Quinn color scheme. But like I said, when I make customs, I don't like to invest too much time in painting them because, you know, the minute you start moving stuff around, the paint will rub off. And I want my figures to just feel very clean and very stock. So I'm like, I'm going to leave the legs red, but at least let's try to add some color variation with that Harley Quinn color scheme, at least on her knees. So I had some jeweled hearts, and I decided to make those like knee pads. So on one leg, I have a black heart, and then on the other leg, I have a red heart. So I kind of feel like it brings some uniformity and cohesion to the whole look of the character. And then lastly, I replaced the Bonds boots with the Harley Quinn boots from this figure over here. You know, I kind of felt like it needed the black just to like pull together the figure entirely, because you have black at the top and then it needed the black on the bottom to balance it out. So yeah, there's the comparison. You know, I'm very happy with this figure. It's a kind of much more realistic take on Harley Quinn. You know, of course it's based off of actress Margot Robbie, but, you know, I kind of wanted to carry some of the comic book elements over, especially the color scheme. And I do like the idea of having the pigtails on top because it kind of like emulates Harley Quinn's like jester hat. So, all right, let's take one last pass at this character. So we have, here's a nice close-up. And you can see her halter top and skirt. And then there's the Bond legs with the gray studs down the pant leg. We have the jeweled knee pads. The Harley Quinn black boots. And here's the back. Continues the color scheme on the corset and the skirt, and also on the bicep wraps. So overall, I'm happy with it. There's things I would want to improve on it, like I'd love to give her some sort of necklace or choker, because I feel like it's kind of like empty up here. I kind of need something to fill up the space here. I might go back and add some gray trim on her halter top just to like tie it in together with the legs. I would love to give her like 2 holsters too for the guns, but I gotta find holsters. So I kind of feel like this might be a work in progress. You know, in the future I might add more to it. But for now, I just wanted to share this with you. Alright, so with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. And like I always say, if you've never done a custom action figure, you know, I think it's something that you should, you know, just try it even just once. It's a fun challenge. You know, if there's a character that's out there and they don't make that character like an action figure form, you know, take on the challenge and see if you could create that figure for yourself. You know, it's very rewarding. It's a good learning experience. And if you're like me, you might get the bug, and that's all you'll want to do. Like, collecting action figures is cool. You know, doing fig photography is cool. But I think there's something special about taking an action figure and just really making it your own. You know, you develop an attachment to it, and it just feels a lot more special. You know, especially if you're creating, you know, something that's a 1 out of 1. All right, so with that being said, take care, and I will see you at the next video. All right, later.